So Superman has been out for a few weeks now. I imagine you guys saw it. If not, why are you watching this video? But like everyone else on this website, it's time to take the new version of something and compare it to the old version of it. Except we're not going to be doing that. Well, kinda. At least not in the traditional sense. Stay with me now. You see, viewer, I'm not really interested in comparing the special effects, the story, cinematography, music, and whatnot. I actually want to discuss how they're very different, and how they're ultimately just different approaches to the same character. I'm more intrigued by those different interpretations and the thought process when they were being made, not about which one is necessarily better. Is that a bit of a cop-out? Yeah, sure. But I think it would just make for a more interesting topic. Of course, you can 100% compare them in the various ways that I just listed. The story, writing, characters, effects, etc. And determine which one is better that way if you want. I imagine many people have already done that. Hell, I'm pretty sure Nostalgia Critic is cooking up an old versus new as we speak. But I just want to talk about their differences and the polar opposite approaches that they took. If that interests you, then stick around and let's get started. Some assume that you've seen these movies and know what they're about, because I don't really feel like recapping them, and also there might be spoilers. I'm trying to think of the best way to start this, so I'm just gonna hop right into it. So forgive me if it feels like I'm rambling. This might be weird to say, but these two movies couldn't be further apart. Not just in tone and style, of course, but the overall approach is what's pretty fascinating to me. Man of Steel feels like a deconstruction of the character, whereas Superman feels like a reconstruction. I'm not the only one to make this comparison either. I've seen a few others mention this online as well. With Man of Steel, the whole point was to tell a story of Clark being lost in a foreign world, struggling to find his place, and to learn about his alien heritage, and then finally pick up the mantle and becoming a hero by the end. Hell, Zack Snyder basically says as much way back in the day.
Not to be too philosophical, but it's Man of Steel. It's man first. He's not Superman yet. You know, like if we'd called the movie Superman, that's the last scene of this movie is the first scene of the movie, right? Like he's showing up at the Daily Planet, and that's where we're beginning. And I really wanted this to be about the formation of Superman, the sort of the bedrock of what it would take to create Superman.
Superman, on the other hand, skips this part of Clark's story and has him already being the hero. He's aware of his alien heritage, and he has been Superman for a few years before the movie even starts. So from the jump, these two versions of the character are at two different points in their lives. But things don't stop there. The type of stories are different as well. Man of Steel is an origin story through and through. Clark is the first meta-human on Earth. He has to discover everything about himself before finally becoming a hero. In Superman, it's established that meta-humans have existed for a long time, and the movie kind of assumes that you get the gist and quickly gets you up to speed and then kind of drops you in, bypassing a lot of the setup that would typically happen in an origin film. It's kind of like Matt Reeves' The Batman. You get an idea of the character, and then you just get into the movie. So their setups and approaches to the world building are very different. But that's not all. Let's keep going, because there's still more. These are both movies about Superman, except there's another key difference. Man of Steel felt different from what came before, while Superman felt very familiar, which was the intention for both of these films. Gunn said he pulled from a lot of different Superman media when putting together his movie. There were influences such as the Silver and Bronze Age comics, as well as Kingdom Come and All-Star Superman. And of course, the Christopher Reeve Superman film was a huge influence, and he even pulled from Smallville a little bit.
When I was making this movie, I really was taking stuff from all sorts of different comic books and TV shows and movies. And I'm a Smallville fan, you know? Yeah. It was Luthor Corp in Smallville.
It was all designed to be a bit familiar. Basically, it was Superman how people commonly refer to him as, you know, the big blue Boy Scout. While Snyder, on the other hand, was interested in exploring a side of Superman not commonly seen on screen, focusing a lot on his alien heritage back on Krypton, as well as Clark just struggling with his identity, showcasing various points of his childhood and how different it was for him growing up. Like I mentioned earlier, focusing very heavy on his origin and just him finding himself and learning about himself, trying to figure out what kind of man he wants to be.
Yeah, I really wanted the contrast to be obvious that there was a other world that Superman came from, and I thought if you didn't do it in a real substantial way, that the audience really doesn't have that resonance ringing in their ear like the entire time that Superman was born on another planet. You know, that's a thing that people forget. You know, I think it's not really present in the mythology as it is in the comic book originally. It's very present. He's an alien, and I think that part of it. I really wanted to make sure people understood.
It pulls from the post-crisis Superman, namely the Man of Steel run from 1986, but there are others like Superman Birthright, Superman Last Son, and Superman Secret Origins being influences as well. And at the time, several of these were modern retellings of the Superman origin, with the last one making a lot of sense considering the writer, Jeff Johns, is a producer and writer on several DC projects over at Warner Brothers, and has been since the 2000s. Also, Man of Steel seems to pull a lot from Superman Earth 1, especially the stuff related to Zod. So even the comics they're pulling the most inspiration from from are pretty different, and they're focusing on very different aspects of those inspirations, with Gunn opting to take the brighter aspects of the Superman stories and showcasing them as this big beacon of hope. The big blue hopeful Boy Scout, you know? And Snyder taking the more serious and somber aspects of these stories and focusing more on that. This is also a reflection in its tone. Snyder is going for more serious and realistic, while Gunn is going for a brighter look and feel. Snyder wants it to be somewhat grounded, while Gunn purposely wants it to feel like a comic book popping off the page. He even said that he wanted to feel like you were picking up a random issue of a comic book and just started reading, where there's an already established world and story happening, and you're just hopping in on it. Which makes sense considering the movie starts with an established world in the middle of an action sequence, with a story that's mostly already in motion, and of course a few other heroes start making appearances. Each movie also depicts Superman in a different way. Snyder's Man of Steel explores how people perceive Superman as an almost foreign godlike being, scared of him and his power because they were unfamiliar with him and beings like him, because he's the first they've ever seen. While in Superman, metahumans and other superpower beings have been around for at least 300 years, so the people see Superman differently from the start. The film only really touches on his alien heritage when Lex tries to use it to bring him down and make people afraid of him. You see, this is what I mean when I say it's interesting discussing these two versions because they are very different in their approaches. Funny enough, a lot of Superman kind of feels like a response to Man of Steel. Things are too dark? Okay, now it's bright and colorful. Too serious? Hey, we got jokes. Too realistic or grounded of an approach? This one literally tries to be a comic book or an episode of the animated series. Not enough scenes of him saving people? Here are several. Too much destruction? This one evacuates the area so no one actually gets hurt. Funny enough, ever since Man of Steel, that became a more modern thing that these comic book movies do. They established that no one will get hurt. When before, that wasn't really a thing. Come to think of it, even the overall approach to the action is different. Man of Steel is massive and world-ending. A lot of damage is done, while a lot of the action in Superman is, by comparison, more ground level and not as grand or epic in scale. And of course, again, that's by design. It feels like it's scaling back a little bit. I guess what I'm trying to say is that, in a way, it is kind of strange to compare these two because they're ultimately two different movies with two different approaches to the character, the world, the action, and the tone. And they're both setting out to explore and do different things. Kind of like how the Adam West Batman show was a slapstick comedy, pulling from a lot of the Bronze and Silver Age comics of Batman at the time, where he was a brighter and much more fun character. Then you got the 1989 Batman, and they portrayed him as the darker hero that we commonly know him as. Now when it comes to these two movies, you can say one is superior to the other, that's fine. It's all a matter of preference, and honestly just kind of what you're looking for out of the character. It's kind of like how most people have their favorite version of Batman, except with these two movies, they are far more polar opposites. So I guess that's why it makes it more divisive. And you can see this online just about anywhere you look. I put out 2 posts asking you guys which one was better, which one you prefer, and overall just comparing these two. And of course, unsurprisingly, most people felt very strongly one way or the other. Some people liked Man of Steel more, some people hated Man of Steel, some people loved the new Superman, some people absolutely hated it. I'm honestly not surprised that I got that reaction. It's kind of what I expected, honestly. I read your guys' comments, and honestly, I just wanted to take a bit of a different approach. Just talking about what the differences are, because I just found that more fascinating. It's just really interesting to see how someone can look at the same character that's been around for almost 100 years and start pulling from different comics and storylines and different sources of inspiration, and then crafting a new version on screen for us. And of course, like I already mentioned, I also like just seeing the different approaches they took, because they were ultimately trying to make 2 different movies. I've rambled on long enough, so I think that'll about do it. I want you guys to go ahead, leave a comment down below, and let me know, what do you think about Man of Steel and Superman? Which one do you prefer? Me personally, I said years ago that Man of Steel is the best Superman movie, and I will fight anyone who doesn't think so. I'm serious. And honestly, I still kind of feel that way. I still prefer Man of Steel. I love that style and I love that approach. But anyway, that'll about do it. So, see ya.
You want me to take out a gun and blow a fucking hole in your head right here? Right now? You want that?